Travis Pastrana, spectacular, impossible, death-defying, words commonly used describing stunts of the extreme sports legend. The 27-year-old is now embarking on a new ambition, NASCAR.
With NASCAR, I'm finding it might not, and maybe I will have to drop everything.
The sport will presumably lessen the wear and tear on Pastrana, a man who has had many close calls.
Blood everywhere, and I have a friend that's just yelling, I can't feel my legs, I can't feel my legs.
We traveled to Las Vegas to sit down with Travis Pastrana for this episode of In Depth. And later, while preparing for Nitro Circus Live, a risk Pastrana has never taken before, with me on the bike. What's going through your mind right before you do a dangerous stunt? What are you thinking about?
You know, the moment after preparation and before the conclusion is the most intense, the best, and the scariest moment that you'll ever have. And for me, that's the greatest moment. That's the moment I live for. It's when you're sitting up there and you're nervous, but you decide then, am I going to follow through or do I need more practice? And if you decide to follow through, all fear goes out, all worries, anything else that's on your mind, any, you know, if it's money or family or whatever, anything else that you're thinking of completely goes away. And the only thing that you're concerned about is that moment. And that's kind of cool. It's a good feeling.
I read that you said a 2-second jump will almost seem like 20 seconds. How so?
It really feels, in your mind, I don't know if it's just something speeding up, but like time slows down. And for some people, that's time, it just paralyzes them. And they feel like it's forever and they can't do anything. But for the guys that are really good at action sport, it's the time where you go, okay, this is what I need to do. And you can just step-by-step process your way through it. And, you know, when everything's going wrong, that's what really saves your life. And that's what I love those moments. And, you know, I've only had maybe 15 of those moments in my entire life, and most of them have ended up poorly.
Really?
Well, you only get it, for me at least, I only get it when I think everything's going wrong.
Okay.
And I'm scared to death. And then it gives you that little extra time to kind of pace yourself through, and you can, every smell, every sound, every sight, everything, in those moments, I can remember everything, and still can to this day.
And something you're obviously much more comfortable doing are these stunts, regardless of the type. I was reading the book you wrote a while back, and you said in the book, almost the second you see a trick, you know how to do it. How true is that?
I think that's true with anything. I mean, when you see someone do a trick, you go, okay, they did this, this, and this, and you go do it once into a foam pit or something, and you say, I was off. But you look at the video and you say, okay, this is what I did different. So for me, to be the first one to do a trick is way more exciting than to copy somebody else's trick, because it's a lot more difficult.
What's that excitement like, doing it for being the first one to do it?
You know, for me, it's inventing a trick. It's finding out everything that can go wrong. You know, you go over it in your head. And if you can visualize it and you can see exactly what's going to happen, and then you do it, and if you can eventually figure out, you know, how to make that vision reality, and the months and sometimes years that go into it, it's a really great feeling. It's more than that excitement. It's that inward feeling of accomplishment, and that's what's so great about it.
And the double backflip might be a perfect example of that. Talk about the first time you did it in the woods in Spokane, Washington.
It felt good because it was a long time in the making, and I had tried it in the foam pit for years, but, you know, to actually, you know, pull it off, and that was good. And I said I'd never do it again. And then X Games came around, and I was like, you know what, it needs to be done in competition. And then Nitro Circus came around, and I said, well, now other people are doing it. Let's do it side by side.
Wait, I mean, but the X Games, I mean, that was particularly notable. The crowd went crazy. Take me through the decision from actually just deciding to do it in the X Games all the way up through actually executing it.
X Games was kind of a turning point, if you will, in my career. I mean, we had from racing, you know, everything was good, and then started crashing out, started having a lot of injuries. I was just starting to get into rally, so I was actually leading the rally at that point at X Games, and the final was the next day. You know, and I had freestyle, which was my best sport, still to come. Like, this was going to be my biggest X Games, and my first event, really, to be complete, was to try that double backflip. And I was going back and forth. I'm like, should I, shouldn't I? I was nervous, and we finally rock, paper, scissors, literally, with Hubert Rowland, one of my mechanics. And
was it the day of the X Games you did? Or?
It was actually after I was sitting third place after the first rounds. I said, you know what? This needs to be done. It's like Hubert won. He's like, you're going to the top. I said, all right, let's do this. And that's, you know, not to say that it's it's so simple as that. I mean, I knew I was prepared. I knew I could do it, and kind of just put it into fate sometimes and say, okay, I realize that I don't need to do the double backflip. I could still win another gold medal. I still have a chance at really starting my career off in rally cars. This is probably the least of what I need to do, and to still throw it, and for it to work, and for everything else to work that year. I mean, it was definitely my best year at X Games.
And you're willing to take most risks, but I understand you're increasingly concerned when you're doing a stunt with somebody else, when somebody else is involved. So, like the Grand Canyon jump with Jolene. Tell me about what you guys were doing and then what you thought was going to happen.
Grand Canyon jump was the closest I've ever come to have a heart attack. I lost.
Really?
I lost like all my motor skills, my vision. This is still while I was under canopy. So I went with Jolene, who's a good friend of mine, Nitro Circus, and I said, look, I want a girl that can go on the back of a street bike, and it'll be a cool closing to the 199 Lives movie we were making. And sure enough, things went a little wrong. She got caught on the motorcycle. She was stuck underneath the bike. I was watching her go down, and finally she's up. She opens up towards the rock wall, almost hits the rock wall, turns around, and for me, like literally my peripheral vision went in. I got lightheaded. I felt like I was going to have a heart attack, and that was like, okay, I was responsible for one of my best friend's lives, and I gave her the okay to do this, and I went against what everyone else had told me. And she hit the bottom. She was like, "That was the greatest thing ever," and she wasn't scared at all. And I hit the bottom, and I went down to hands and knees, and I'm thinking, Jolene, I can never do this again. Like that was insane. And for like this afternoon, we're going to be doing a tandem jump, and I'm probably more nervous about that than I am for the double flip in the show later.
Really?
So.
No, that makes me feel great.
No problem. I'm there for you.
Thanks for telling me that. Hey, but in reading about that, it got me wondering. When you were much younger, you were in a car accident. Were you driving your car very fast late at night? You end up seriously injuring the passenger, injuries that the person will have for the rest of their life. To what extent did that play into any sensitivities you have now when you're doing stunts that involve other people?
I made a huge mistake. And, at 18, I thought it was a great idea to get a Corvette. And, everyone said it was a stupid idea. I was like, no, I'll be responsible, I'll be mature. And, had a friend in the car, and, some things happened that were outside my control, and I made some bad mistakes, and we were going way too fast. And, went into a tree, and I woke up, I was unconscious, and I'm sitting there, head's actually, hands, everything's dragging the ground because the car was completely destroyed, and, we're at a stop, and I'm just trying to figure out what's going on, blood everywhere, and I have my friend that's just yelling, I can't feel my legs, I can't feel my legs, and, it was the worst time in my life. That for the next year, like, I really took a step back from everything, and I didn't want to be anywhere. I didn't want to have friends at that point. Like, I was, kind of just in my own world to say that I ever want to do that to anyone again. And now, Matt actually, as a positive as a person as he is, he took that, and he's a world-class athlete right now, where he's doing triathlons and mostly doing with the bicycle stuff, and he's in the Olympic Training Center all the time for the Paralympic team, and he's more motivated, more focused. And he said that coming back from that, he wishes now that he had half of the strength that he had to coming back from that and working so hard, just to be able to walk again. He wished he had that strength in motocross and knew how hard he had to work. And he's like, man, maybe I would have been, Ricky Carmichael or whatnot. And it's still tough for me to see, even though I feel like he's done great, and he's really excited. And he moved to California, and that's all he does is just ride his bicycle every day. And, he's in a good place, but it's still hard for me to see that he's not ever able to be the person that he was before. He loved riding motorcycles, and he can ride, but it's not the same, and that's tough. Right away, I was like, oh, didn't go fast enough, and came up short. Almost bled out. That was the third known case in medical history to have that happen.